We gotta talk about it.
Yeah, dude.
It's gonna be cool.
Okay, welcome to the Fuck the Stigma podcast. Today I have Melissa here with us to talk about the fucking stigma.
Fucking stigma. Let's do it.
So, what is up with the stigma right now? How do you perceive stigma and what do you think the effects are of it?
I mean, I think a lot is like just perception, right? Like there's so many things that are stigmatized, like quote unquote stigmatized, like mental health, eating disorders, addiction, right? It doesn't need to be, right? Like,
Why do you think it is?
lack of understanding, the way people were raised, lack of talking about it. When I look at somebody like on the street, or if I look at somebody in a business suit, right? Like you look at them and you see somebody on Wall Street, it's like, oh, they're automatically, right? Like this is somebody who's successful, right? Mm-hmm. You look at me and I have pink hair, so, right? Because I decided I wanted my hair to be pink. Oh, she must be into something that she shouldn't be into, right? And that just goes to our society and the way that people perceive us. And it's fucking bullshit.
Yeah. So when we think about that, like of like the way people are perceiving us, it just prevents us from like being ourselves.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. And then we're not being true to ourselves.
Right.
And then that on its own can affect our mental health.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going through something that's more judged, say like your sexuality, mm-hmm. and then there's struggling with mental health like depression, anxiety. People don't like it and don't like to talk about it and feel uncomfortable talking about it because of the way people perceive it.
Yeah.
And that in turn, all right, look, so somebody's gonna suffer just because of the stigma. Mm-hmm. They won't seek help, ask for help, or like get treatment.
Yep.
So in speaking about that, what do you do for a living?
I work in mental health treatment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I work at 449 Recovery. I do business development, which is kind of a cross between it's admissions, but what I do is I network with other treatment centers so we can help more people. Yeah. So, clients that need, say, they call a treatment center and they're, that treatment center can't help them, or they're not a good fit, or they need a different level of care, right? They call us and we're an outpatient treatment center, but they really need to go to a detox and residential treatment center first. Mm-hmm. We make a phone call to somebody that I know really well, that I trust, right? Like I'll call Justin and say, hey, like I have a client that needs detox and residential. They need to do that first before they can come to our 90-day outpatient program. And we make sure that client gets the help that they need. So that's what I do. I did admissions for years, which I loved, because I know how heavy that phone is. Like, I didn't want to pick up that phone. I
didn't pick up the phone. Somebody had to pick it up for me.
Yeah. I did not pick up that phone for years and years and years, for like a decade. Like, I didn't want to talk about it. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to admit, like, everything. Like, it wasn't just the drugs, it was the depression, it was the anxiety, it was the trauma, it was everything that had gone into it. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
No.
Why do you think you didn't want to talk about it?
Because I never had anybody to talk to about it, and also it had been shunned for so long. It was like I had grown up in a world that was like this constant need for like perfection. And like everything had to be perfect all the time, and it was highly competitive, and it was like you're just going to be okay regardless, and you're just going to do what needs to be done. And that's the way that it was from the time that I was like 2 years old until I was 18. Mm-hmm. And that's the way that it was. It didn't matter if you were hurt or sick or tired or emotional, like fucking put your game face on and go to work.
No excuses, like show up.
Yeah, you show up.
Yeah. So how did that kind of start, the mental health struggles? Like when did you start like noticing it?
I mean, I was always like, I never felt like I fit anywhere.
I relate.
Even like when I was little, like I never felt like I fit, and like I don't even know how old I was when I noticed that. but I always had an outlet. Like I always had sports. So like I had gymnastics and I had figure skating. Like I played like every sport for like a while. Like I did like soccer and baseball and karate and like all that stuff. But like the two things that I like mainly focused on was like gymnastics and figure skating. And then like right around like 4th, 5th grade, like that was it. Like that was what I did all the time. And I didn't have any friends because
you were saying like 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
Doing it.
Yeah. Like I would literally like after school, there was an ice rink right behind my elementary school, and I would change into like my skating tights at school, and I would take my little bag, and my mom like got special permission for me to like walk from school to the ice rink. And I would like march across the field and like in my skating tights and like go to the rink.
Yeah. As you're saying that, talking about like not having you had an outlet. I'm noticing that like we kind of everybody always kind of needs an outlet.
Yeah.
Like when we're really like down bad, like in our addiction, what's our outlet? Substances.
Yep.
And when you said like you had an outlet growing up, like the sports were your outlet, taking up the majority of your time. And then now even where I'm at in recovery, I need an outlet or I'm going to go insane. Yeah. I'm going to get in my head. Or if I don't have an outlet, I'm just sitting in bed all day. I'm going to get depressed.
Yeah.
It's crazy. We needed like almost an escape.
Yeah.
In a way.
It's because like we don't know what to do with ourselves. But that's being human.
Yeah.
Like that's us. Like we have feelings and we have emotions and we need to be able to process them. Right? I mean, at least that's how I look at myself. Like now being sober, it's like, okay, like, yeah, I need an outlet. But like, what is a healthy outlet?
Yeah.
What is...
No, you can't be people, love, sex.
Yeah, like what is healthy? Like what is a healthy outlet? Like how do you take care of yourself? It's very, very different. Like it's very different now than what it used to be. So
what would you say your outlet is now?
I mean, I go to the gym, I play with my dog, I get to help people. Like, I do things very different. Like, I go outside, I hang out with my friends. Like, I go to, like, we make plans. Like, we'll go and have fight night. And, like, we go to somebody's house and we make a bunch of food. And, like, we do those kinds of things. And for me, just like taking care of myself is like, I'll just go and I'll sit outside for 20 minutes. I'll let the dog run around. Like, you know, there's different things to just take care of me as opposed to like going and doing a bunch of drugs.
Destroying you.
Yeah, destroying myself and my life and my family and my relationships and everything else. It's very, very different.
Yeah. So you mentioned you were an ice skater.
I was.
For how long?
I was basically born in an ice rink.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
birthed on the rink.
Yeah. Like my brother started playing hockey when he was 2, and he's 2 years older than me. He's 2.5 years older. So the first time I was in an ice rink, I was 6 months old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started playing hockey when I was 2. But I had zero interest in chasing a puck. So like,
yeah.
I started figure skating like very shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I started skating and I loved it and I was good and I was talented and I was just, that was the only thing I wanted to do. Like I loved it. And I switched over to what is synchronized skating when I was in like 5th grade, I think.
I've heard in the sport you peak young.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Figure skating is very different where it's like, not so much in synchronized skating. Like some people will like compete through like college and like go up to in like 25-ish. But yeah, like figure skating, you pretty much like peak when you're like 15, 16. And I started like doing synchro, and I had these coaches that like were very much... It's funny, I actually talked to my best friend about this. Her and I skated together, and we're still best friends, like 20 plus years later. I'm aging myself, because we met when I first started doing this. And there was a lot of good, but there was also like a lot of bad to this. Because we would have practice for like 10 hours at a time, and we were like kids, and there was just like so many things, like I don't even know, like it didn't matter if we were sick, it didn't matter if we were injured, it didn't matter like what we were going through that day, like we would get like yelled at, we would get like you don't know something's traumatic until like it affects you later in life.
Yes. That's a big one.
Like that's the best way to explain it, right?
You don't know it's trauma when it's happening.
You don't know it's trauma when it's happening. Like, especially like emotional trauma, right? Yeah. Like when you have something and you look at trauma, right? Like if you look at like you're an adult and like you're like sexually assaulted, like, you know, like that's something that's like, this is something big, like this is something happened, right? But like when you look back and like when stuff is happening to you as a kid like that, I had no idea that like all of these things and like getting like bullied and screamed at and like being yelled at for like being late to get on a bus because I had 105 fever. It wasn't like, are you okay? Like, are you like, do you need to like skip this practice? It was like, why the fuck were you late?
Yeah.
Like, why didn't you get out of bed on time?
Yeah.
Like,
it's insane. Yeah.
Like, what
but
the hell?
I get that. And that is like, that's just not right.
No.
But I didn't realize, I didn't even come to like the realization I even had trauma till 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like somebody asked me like, have you experienced trauma? I was like, a little pause, like a kind of long pause, but I was like, I don't think so. You know?
Right.
I didn't know what I thought trauma was, but I didn't think I had experienced it.
No.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even know like until like later, like until I got sober. I'm like, holy shit, like I had a fucking eating disorder.
Yeah, and that's common in the figure skating, like ice skating world, isn't it?
Yeah, I used to puke up all my food.
Yeah.
Because they labeled it, they're like, oh, you just get nervous. You get nervous before a competition.
Jeez.
It's like, okay, I'm training 10 hours a day on like a bagel and a Gatorade, and I like throw it up every time I eat it.
Yeah.
But I'm nervous.
And how long did you struggle with an eating disorder for?
Probably like the whole time I was competing.
Yeah. And did you like process that afterward?
I processed it like as an adult. Mm-hmm. I still don't have the best relationship with food, but it's like I'm aware of it. Yeah. Like I know what it is. Like I can identify it. It doesn't define me define me as a person. But it was like, holy shit. And they knew about it. And yeah. They didn't do anything about it. Like these are people that were like supposed to be taking care of kids, and like my parents trusted them because my parents both had jobs. They didn't have time to be at the ring 40 hours a week.
With the other kids like that you were training with, how was your relationship with them? You know what I mean? Because I'm assuming they're going through the same thing.
Well, that's the interesting part. So when I was skating on this team, there was a very interesting dynamic. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of favoritism. And there was a couple of ways that you could be a favorite. You had to like be in the little bubble. And your mom had to do things for the coaches.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. They had to be like a team mom. Like, have you ever seen like dance moms?
Yeah.
Yeah. You had to be like a stage mom. And like you had to be like a chaperone, and you had to like do these things, and like you had to like show up, and you had to like have a lot of money, and you had to
my mind went to sexual favors.
There was one instance of that. A woman having an affair with the coach, cheating on her husband, because there was 2 female coaches that were together. They were a couple. And then this, all of a sudden, like, they're fighting all the time.
Yeah.
Because one of them's having an affair with one of the moms who's married. And her
drama.
Yeah,
like, yeah.
Drama. And, like, it was crazy. It was, like, it was the most insane. Like, when I look back on it now, I'm like, holy shit.
Insanity.
Like, this is absolutely crazy. And it's like, my mother, I have the best parents in the world. Like, my parents are absolutely fantastic. But they didn't want anything to do with this. They were like, my kid just wants to skate. Like, she loves it. That's what she wants to do. So, like, some of these moms would, like, sit up in the stands for, like, hours and hours and hours. My mom would bring the laundry and her TV and sit in the van. She would sit in the car with her soaps that she would record, and she would fold laundry. And she would hide from these, like, crazy moms.
Yeah.
She wanted nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Like...
So when did you start, like, getting out of... Why did you get out of figure skating?
So I had kind of had enough, but I didn't realize that I had had enough.
Okay.
I had enough of, like, being treated badly, of, you know, being passed over for opportunities because of favoritism, enough of being injured. Like, I had a really nasty back injury. Like, I crashed into another girl, and, like, the only thing I remember was, like, being on the ice for, like, 20 minutes. Like, somebody should have taken me to the hospital. And they didn't. They just kind of waited until I could move all my limbs and pick me back up and sent me back off. I had just kind of had enough of where I was, and I, like, wanted to move on. They had always told me, they're like, we are going to turn you into the best skater you can be. We're going to make it so you can go off and you can do everything that you want to do. And so I did, but there was, like, this unspoken rule that, like, you didn't move on until you went to college. And so, but I had just had enough. But I couldn't vocalize that because I had never been allowed to. It was always like, we stuff it down. We don't talk about our feelings. We don't talk about, like, what's bothering us. It was just like, you suit up, you show up. So I decided, like, I told my mom, I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I need to go somewhere else. I tried out for a bunch of different synchro teams. I made the best team in the country. I called my coaches. I said, look, this is what's going on. I have 24 hours to make a decision. I want to talk to you. Nothing. Refused to speak to me, cut me out of their lives. Like, these were women that I had trusted, like, for the last, like, 6, 7, 8 years. Like, they were basically my adult role models, like, everything. Yeah. And it was just, like, met with, like, rejection, abandonment, fuck you. My teammates weren't allowed to talk to me. Nothing.
Just because of a possible team switch.
Like,
yeah.
Big old finger, fuck you. We don't want anything to do with you. And so I had time in between. I told my parents I wanted to take a year off, and they were like, no, you can't take a year off. Like, you're going to do this. You're going to take this opportunity because this is what you're going to go do. Like, you made a commitment. Like, you're going to go do this. And, like, I took that, like, rejection, that abandonment, like, really, really hard because I was like, what the hell? Like, this,
like, when you needed it the most, like, the most support.
Yeah.
And direction.
Right.
You were getting nothing.
Because, like, mind you, because of everything that I was doing outside of school, right? Like, number one, I went to an all-girls Catholic private school.
Oh.
So.
I have another question for you.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any religious trauma?
No.
No?
I was just like, whatever. It was just school.
It was a school.
And I barely went because I was always, like, I would get notes that said I couldn't go to school because I had to go to practice.
Yeah.
Like, not just competition. It's like, oh, no, we have a competition coming up. So not only is she going to be gone for a week, she's going to be gone for the 3 days before.
Yeah.
Like, because she has practice.
Mm-hmm.
Ridiculous. But it was, like, this rejection, and it's like, okay, so now what do? I have all of this free time.
Mm-hmm.
And now all of a sudden I can have a life.
Do normal people things, perhaps?
What? What do 16-year-olds do?
I know what I was doing.
But, like, I had no idea. I had no idea. And I also didn't have a lot of friends because my entire life
was around
my entire identity
was ice skating.
Yeah. That was my whole life. And now all of a sudden I've got from, like, April, May till August off. I'm about to be a senior in high school. I've got like a couple of friends at school. Like there was only a couple of them that like understood what I did like outside of school. And they're like, hey, like let's go to a party. I'm like, all right, cool. Like the day I got my driver's license.
Yeah.
I'll drive. Let's go. All right. So I got my driver's license. I go to a party. I get drunk. I do cocaine. And I have sex. Fuck.
16-year-old experience.
Yeah, like all in one day. Because why not?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I lived in a bubble for so long. I had no idea how to communicate with anybody. And also, like, now that I look back on it and I look back on the trauma, like, mind you, the dude I had sex with was one of my friend's boyfriends. Because now, like, looking at it, it was like, well, I don't trust women. Let's go look for men. I find a man that I can trust. Which brings up all, like, the patterns that continued on throughout all of my using.
Yeah. So from there, it kind of just, did it start becoming a regular thing?
Yeah.
Off the bat?
Off the bat, dude. I was drunk and coked out and slutting it up all over the place.
How did that play out to the point where you had to get sober? Somewhat summed up.
Oh my God. It went in waves.
The chaos?
Yes, the chaos went in waves because I still had that like need to like people please and that perfectionism in me and like all of these things of like it doesn't matter like what's going on in my life, like everything still needs to like be okay and like needs to be perfect because that's how I was like taught. Right? Like that's how I was raised. Like it's almost like this good little soldier. So I would like go in waves and like you know, I would, like, I had a job. Like, I ended up, like, I went away to school. That did not go well. Whoever let me go to Florida was a fucking idiot.
Florida for school sounds horrible. I've heard it's just parties, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I stopped going to class the first week.
Yeah.
You know, I saw more of Tampa General in the bar than I did of the University of Tampa. I just kind of lived there for a semester and, like, you know.
Moral of the story, don't go to Florida.
Yeah, don't go to Florida for college. I mean, you can, like, good luck.
Yeah.
But it was bad. And my parents were like, yeah, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Came back, like, got a full-time job, like, was blowing lines of Oxy in the bathroom, but still keeping the job. But I still had the job because I was like, no, I'm good. I'm fine.
Yes.
I'm not struggling with anything.
So you would say it was somewhat manageable.
Yeah.
You know, like, I've been hearing recently, like, oh, I was, like, a pretty manageable functioning addict or alcoholic. And I always, like, laugh, because it sounds weird and almost not possible.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you could hold a job, but, like, what are your insides looking like right now?
Yes. Like,
Yeah.
I went back to school. I got a degree. I got a bachelor's degree in biomedical science and microbiology.
Yeah.
It kind of like took a turn like towards the end, like after I graduated from school, where it was like, okay, like things were really starting to get out of control because I had like my back was super messed up from skating. So I just had like, I had one doctor that would give me a prescription for Oxy. I had my psychiatrist that I still had from high school that gave me a prescription for Xanax.
Oh, yeah.
I had another psychiatrist that gave me a prescription for Adderall.
Oh, yeah.
And then I started like, because I was in school, I was like working as like a server and a bartender. And so I was just getting like fucked up all day long. Like I wasn't just a dumpster, like I was a dumpster that was on fire. Like it was really, really, really bad.
Yeah.
And it was all like, I like would sometimes like, I had always been medicated for like my depression and my anxiety, but I would like sometimes take my meds and then like not take my meds. And like, then I would drink and like, it got to a point where it was so bad. Like I knew that I knew I was a drug addict years ago, like a decade before that. But like,
What kind of got you to get to that point where like you knew you were a drug addict?
because any time that I put something in my body, I wanted more, no matter what it was. I always like, there was no off switch with me, like ever. And that was with anything in life. Like I couldn't just have one ice cream sandwich. I wanted 5. Like I wanted as many as I could have. Like I always wanted everything. I wanted everything all the time. And it got to a point where it was like, I remember like I would go in like these phases and it's like, okay, well, like I know I can't drink because I'm an alcoholic, so I'm gonna stop drinking. But like I'm just gonna like do a bunch of drugs because I can function on drugs, but I can't function when I drink. And then it's like, okay, well I can't do drugs anymore, so let's start drinking again. And then I couldn't stop drinking. And I remember like hitting a point where it was like I couldn't like go like more than 2 or 3 hours without like alcohol because like I would shake really bad. And I was at a bar one night. It was the same bar that I always went to, and I was there for the 4th time that day. Mm-hmm. My dad walked in and he was like, "You getting fucked up?" I'm like, "You're gonna get fucked up." I'm like, "This is great. You can drive me home."
Yeah.
Because at that point,
you're smart though, because I was the one that would just drive.
Oh.
Yeah.
I drove hammered all the time. I still, to this day, have no idea how I've never been arrested.
You've never been arrested?
No. I have no idea how. I've sat in the back of several cop cars.
Yeah.
Like several. But I would always just convince them that I was like going through something.
You know, some people get that lucky, yeah. Because I've heard many stories of people just like, oh, like give a sob story.
I would always end up and make them take me to the hospital, and then I end up like on a psych hold.
Yeah, that's so smart.
Yeah.
I've only ever had one good experience with a police officer, but every other one, I just, you know.
Well, I mean, I also like use something to my advantage. My last name is the same last name as the chief of police in the town over from me. So they would like look at my license and they'd be like, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
And I never bothered to correct anybody. I'm not related to him. But, you know, I just kind of used it to my advantage.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would just like cry my way out of it or whatever. But that night was like, that was like that turning point night of like, I just was so desperate. I had hit that wall of like, I wanted to die. I would go to bed every night of like wishing that I was dead. Like go to bed hoping that I wouldn't wake up the next day, and waking up in the morning wishing that I never did.
Yeah.
Like it was just, I was so done. And it wasn't just the drugs and the alcohol. It was me. But I wanted to blame it on the drugs and the alcohol.
Yeah, of course.
But it wasn't the drugs and the alcohol. Like, it was me.
Yeah.
Like, it was everything. It was all the depression. It was everything. It was all the trauma. It was just everything that I didn't want to deal with. And I wanted a way out. And that night I got so fucked up. Like, I don't even know how much I drank. I don't know what drugs I did. I fucked some dude behind the bar. I think it was somebody's husband. Like, you know, that was my thing. Like, I would get drunk and I'd end up naked, and then I would do something stupid, and then I would end up in a fight, or like, you know, that was like that was my life. And I tried to get in my car. And somebody like tackled me, basically, got my dad, and he drove me home, and I cried all the way home, and I begged him to send me to treatment.
That was the beginning.
Yeah. And I had asked to go to treatment before.
You asked?
I had asked my parents to send me to treatment before. Twice.
So why didn't they?
That's the thing that I still don't know. But I went to treatment when I was supposed to go to treatment.
I agree.
Because even still, when I was packing my bags, like, I was completely sober, incomplete withdrawal, and my mom couldn't understand like why I was so like hysterical, like. And finally, I just like reached under my bed and pulled out a bottle of whiskey and started chugging it. And she like couldn't watch. She left, and she came back, and I was totally fine because I'd hit my baseline. Like, I needed that. Like, I was that like addicted to, like, I was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And my parents were telling me, they're like, you understand, like, if you go to treatment, you can never drink again. I'm like, yeah, no fucking shit, dude. Like,
Yeah.
I am a drug addict.
Yeah, so I definitely believe that, like, you went to treatment when you, like, hit that bottom, and
yeah.
you haven't taken a drink since or anything?
No.
There we go.
Like, and what's crazy is like, I went to a treatment center in Florida.
Yeah, fucking Florida.
Fucking Florida. And I was there for like 53 days. I was there there for 53 days. So Florida, they like to shuttle you. They try and shuttle you into like their sober livings. And there was a girl that I was in treatment with. And she was like, you're not going here. She had been in treatment everywhere. And she was like, you're a princess and you belong in Orange County. And she wrote on a piece of paper that was literally this big. She wrote Rodney Robinson, 449 Recovery, San Clemente, California.
That's
and
insane.
She handed it to me. That's where I work now. That is where I went to my aftercare. That is where I went for the next 6 months.
That's so
I was at
crazy,
449 for 6 months. And then I moved into a private pay sober living, and I was a house manager, and I was in treatment from January until like July, and then I house managed until December. So I basically was in treatment for like a whole year because that was what I needed.
Yes.
And it was rough.
Yeah, dude, it's not pretty.
It's not pretty.
Especially that first year.
That first year was so gnarly because I had only one emotion. I was fucking angry. I was angry. I was angry because I didn't know. I didn't know how to express my emotions. I couldn't be like, I'm sad. I'm depressed. I'm traumatized. Like, I fucking hate all of you, and I hate everything because the person I really hated was myself.
Projecting.
Yeah. And it's funny now because my boss, Andrew, he had to kick me out of 449 Sober Living.
Oh, you got kicked out?
I didn't get kicked out of the program, but I did get kicked out of Sober Living because I like said I was going to drown my roommate and kill her fish. I was not a fun client by any means. I was that girl. It's
just nuts that you have the position you do now there.
I know.
That's a funny story.
I know.
Yeah.
And I have the position I do now because I was supposed to have it now. I wasn't supposed to have it when I wanted it. I've been trying to get a job there for the last, like, I don't know how many years. It didn't come about till like December. It didn't open up until this past December. When I called Andrew to be like, hey, I need to refer somebody over to 449. He's like, hey, by the way, I'm looking for somebody. I was like, hire me right now.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, yeah, I'm stoked for you. And you have how much time now?
I took 6 years in January.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
I know you'd said that you had asked to go to treatment before, but they didn't take you or, like, really kind of want you to. So was there like just a stigma overall with addiction growing up and with family?
I don't know if there was necessarily like a stigma like with my family growing up against it. I think it was just that it wasn't something that we really like talked about. Like even when I was in high school, like even when all of this stuff happened, when figure skating happened, right? And I left, like my coaches like shut me down and rejected me, and I moved on to this new team. I eventually got caught doing cocaine. My parents knew about it. Like, I'm 17 years old, I'm doing drugs. I remember like asking my dad, like, I think I should go to treatment. Like there's something wrong. And it wasn't just the drugs, and I knew it because, like, I was in therapy. I was seeing a psychiatrist. Like, there was something wrong. He was like, do you really think you need to go to one of those places?
That seems like he has a certain view on treatment and getting help for it and addicts and substance abuse on its own.
Right. Because it's like, and I I would agree with that, because I still to this day like don't think they fully understand it.
A lot of people don't.
And I think a lot of it just has to do with, again, it wasn't talked about.
Yeah. So I very much agree with that. And I'm sure like it was just a lack of understanding and lack of knowledge. And then you didn't even like you knew there was probably some help you needed, but you maybe didn't exactly know what or what was going on with you. So like what's fucking dope is what something that we're doing now with Fuck the Stigma is my substance abuse was huge in high school. Like that's where it started. That's right when I graduated high school. That's when I ended up going to treatment. But we're fucking like speaking at high schools now, like bringing awareness to what substance abuse can look like and what mental health is. Like bring that to kids in high school.
It should be.
Yeah.
Because like dare. Get out of here. Like give me dare and abstinence. Like are you kidding me?
Yeah, like just say no.
Just say no. Like realistically, like that is not going to happen anywhere in America. Like no, like you need to like be aware of like what this can look like, and not just the kids, like the parents.
Yeah. Like
the parents need to be aware of like what this is going to look like. Like if I had kids, like obviously like being in the program, like I know what it's going to look like. I would hope, but at the same time, like I was a master manipulator.
Yeah.
But like my parents' philosophy on it was like, oh, she'll just get through it. Like my mom would be like hysterically crying like at the fact that I was like doing drugs and like running around like being a hoe, and he was like, she'll just get through it.
Yeah, and it's just like that's just really not how it works. Like once an addict or an alcoholic finds a substance and gets hooked on, like there's no getting through it on your own. You know what I mean?
No getting through it on your own. There has to be some sort of like intervention, like whatever that looks like. And everybody's different as to what that help looks like, right? Because for me, like all of that trauma and like the mental health piece of it needed to be addressed.
Yes.
Like I use substances as my coping mechanism. That was my medicine. And if you take away my medicine, I'm not okay. Yeah. Like, you can't take my drugs away because I'm not okay. Because nobody ever treated everything that happened. Like, that was the piece that was missing. But in order to treat that piece, you have to be able to talk about it. Exactly. But nobody wanted to talk about it. Nobody wanted to address it. Nobody wanted to talk about what happened. It was just like, okay. And it was
dude, that's the one that irks my soul, is just brushing it off like
she's gonna be fine.
Yeah, yikes, like, she'll figure it out.
That
bugs me, dude, to the core. And like not having that conversation, the avoidance. Yeah. She's like, dude, let's have this uncomfy conversation that we're having right now. Yeah. Like you're not gonna die from it. Let's just do it.
No, like I'm gonna die from doing all the drugs I was doing. We're not gonna die from having a conversation about like why. Like we have to process it. Yeah. You have to process what happened. And even if you don't want to, like, what is going to happen? What is the worst thing that is going to happen if we talk about something that you don't want to talk about? Mm-hmm. It's going to be a little uncomfortable. You might get a little emotional. You might have uncomfortable feelings about it. It might bring up things that you didn't even know, right? Like we talked about it. I didn't know that all of this stuff that happened to me as a kid was actually trauma because nobody ever talked to me about it. But by the time I was like 17, 18 years old, maybe if we had a conversation about it, if I was allowed like that space to talk to my parents, for them to say, hey, like, what's going on? Like, why are we so upset about this?
Yeah, but some parents just don't know how to do that. Like, maybe they didn't get it. That's usually the case.
It usually is the case, but
It's
that's
just passed down shit.
yeah, and that's okay. Like, I wouldn't change like the way like things are. Like, I have a really great life now. Like, I did a lot of things. Like, a lot of people say, like, I hear this in meetings sometimes of they're like, I wouldn't trade like my worst day sober for my best day getting loaded. And I think that's a bunch of crap, because like,
I hate that. It doesn't make sense to me.
I hate that saying, because there were like, I had a lot of fun getting loaded. Like, I did a lot of fun stuff, like partying on yachts and like doing all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah, I didn't have that experience. I was just in a trap house.
Yeah. I mean, no, like, I did those things too.
Yeah,
like, there was a lot of bad. There was
Yeah.
a lot of bad, but like, there was some, like, I had some good times, right? I wouldn't trade the person that I am today for the person that I was getting loaded. Because I was a horrible, horrible human being. I didn't care about anybody, anything. I didn't care about myself. And that's not who I am today. It's very, very different. So,
Dude, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today.
dude, I'm so stoked. I love this so much.
Yeah.
Like, we have to do this more. Like, everybody needs to be able to have a space like this. Just talk about it.
That's what we're hoping to provide, and I don't. Maybe are we doing it? I
You
think
are.
so.
You are doing it. And like, just being able to share it with people, and like, dude, fuck the stigma.
Fuck the stigma.
Fuck the stigma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.